You know that feeling when you tell a small lie. Maybe you say you're busy when you're not, or you pretend to like something you don't, and suddenly your whole body feels wrong, like you swallowed something that doesn't belong inside you. That's not guilt. That's not your conscience. That's something way more interesting happening. Something in you has changed, and once it changes, there's no going back. I'm talking about those tiny lies we tell every day without thinking. Yeah, I'll call you back. No, I'm not upset. I loved your gift. Little things, harmless things, the social lubricant that keeps everything running smoothly. Except now, they don't feel harmless anymore. Now when you lie, even about the smallest thing, you feel it immediately. Your throat tightens. Your chest gets heavy. Your thoughts start racing. It's like your body is rejecting the lie the same way it would reject poison. And here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't happening just to you. Look around. Notice how many people suddenly can't keep their masks on anymore. How many relationships are falling apart not because of big betrayals, but because someone couldn't keep pretending. How many people are walking away from jobs, friendships, entire lives because the act of pretending became physically unbearable. This is not a coincidence. Something fundamental has shifted in how reality works, and your body knows it before your mind does. Think about it like this. Imagine reality is like water. For a long time, we could move through it any way we wanted. We could twist, we could hide, we could create whatever image we wanted others to see. The water was thick enough to hold our masks in place. But now the water is getting thinner, clearer, more transparent. And suddenly, every movement you make is visible. Every lie you tell creates ripples that everyone can see, including you. Your body has become incredibly sensitive to dishonesty because dishonesty has become incredibly expensive. Not expensive in the moral sense, expensive in the energetic sense. Every time you lie now, you're not just saying words that aren't true. You're creating a split inside yourself. One part of you knows the truth. Another part is performing the lie. And holding those two parts separate takes enormous energy. Energy you don't have anymore. Because here's what's happening. The world is moving faster. Not clock time faster. Connection faster. Consequence faster. You lie to someone on Monday. By Wednesday, life has already shown you why that was a terrible idea. The person finds out, or something happens that makes your lie obvious. Or you have to tell 3 more lies to cover the first one, and suddenly you're exhausted. The gap between action and consequence has collapsed. It's like reality is learning, adapting, getting better at showing you immediately when you're out of alignment with what's true. And your body? Your body has become the detector. Think about the last time you lied about something small. Maybe you said you were fine when you weren't. Maybe you agreed to something you didn't want to do. Maybe you laughed at a joke that wasn't funny. What happened in your body? I'm willing to bet you felt it instantly. A tightness, a disconnect, like you stepped slightly outside of yourself. That feeling is information. It's your body telling you, this doesn't match. This isn't aligned. This isn't true. And once you start noticing that feeling, you can't ignore it anymore. Some people think this is about becoming a better person, about evolving morally, about finally developing integrity. But it's not about morality at all. It's about physics. Lying has become physically uncomfortable because you're becoming more sensitive to the truth. Your whole being is calibrating to a new frequency. And at this frequency, dishonesty feels like static, like interference, like trying to listen to music through a bad connection. You can't unhear it once you hear it. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Now let's go deeper into what's actually happening. Remember when you could compartmentalize? When you could be one person at work, another person with friends, another person alone? When you could hold contradictions inside yourself without feeling torn apart? That ability is disappearing, not because you're becoming weaker, because reality is becoming more integrated. Think of it like this. Imagine your life is a giant web. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you take, it's all connected. The web has always been there, but for most of your life, you couldn't see it. The connections were invisible. Now they're lighting up. When you lie to someone, even about something trivial, you're not just affecting that one conversation. You're sending a vibration through the entire web. And because you're connected to everything in your life, you feel it everywhere. You lie to your friend about being busy. 2 days later, someone lies to you about something important. Coincidence? You tell yourself you're happy in a situation you hate. A week later, everything in that situation gets worse. Coincidence? You pretend to be interested in something you're not. Suddenly you're surrounded by people and opportunities related to that thing you don't even care about. Coincidence? No. Consequence. The web is showing you exactly what you're putting into it. Here's what people don't understand about truth and lies. They think truth is about facts, about saying what actually happened, about not making things up. But that's just the surface level. Real truth, the kind your body is demanding now, is about alignment. It's about whether what you're saying matches what you're feeling, whether what you're doing matches what you want, whether the face you show the world matches who you actually are inside. And when there's misalignment, even tiny misalignment, your whole being knows it. Your body isn't stupid. It knows when you're performing. It knows when you're hiding. It knows when you're saying yes, but meaning no. It knows when you're smiling, but dying inside. And it's done cooperating with the performance. This is why you can't lie anymore. Not because lying is wrong, because lying costs too much. Every lie you tell now, including the lies you tell yourself, requires you to maintain two separate realities. The reality of what's true and the reality of what you're pretending. And maintaining two realities simultaneously is exhausting. You know those moments when you suddenly feel completely drained for no reason? When you haven't done anything physically demanding, but you're absolutely exhausted? Check what you've been lying about. Because here's the secret. The energy drain isn't coming from your activities. It's coming from your contradictions. Every time you say you're okay when you're not, you leak energy. Every time you pretend to care about something you don't, you leak energy. Every time you act like someone you're not, you leak energy. The leaks are small, but they add up. And eventually you hit a point where you simply don't have enough energy to maintain the lies anymore. Your body shuts down the lying mechanism to preserve itself. That's what's happening to you right now. Your body has run the numbers. It's calculated the cost. And it's decided that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how inconvenient, no matter how scary, is cheaper than lies. So it's forcing you to be honest. not through moral pressure, through physical pressure. Notice how your body responds differently to different levels of truth now. When you speak from your actual feelings, even if those feelings are messy or contradictory or unpopular, your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, your chest opens. You feel more alive. When you perform what you think you should say, even if it sounds better, even if it's more diplomatic, even if it makes everyone happy, your body contracts, your breathing gets shallow, your shoulders tense. You feel slightly dead. Your body is teaching you the difference between truth and performance. And once you learn that difference, you can't unlearn it. Some people are terrified of this. They think if they can't lie anymore, they'll lose everything. Their job will fall apart. Their relationships will explode. Their carefully constructed life will collapse. And you know what? Maybe it will. But here's what they don't see. What's built on lies was always going to collapse eventually. The only question was when. The new rules of reality are simply accelerating the timeline, bringing the collapse closer so you can rebuild faster. Because here's the thing about truth. It's not destruction. It's clarification. When you stop lying about what you want, you stop wasting time on what you don't want. When you stop lying about how you feel, you stop attracting people who need you to be someone else. When you stop lying about who you are, you stop living someone else's life. Truth doesn't destroy your life. It destroys your false life. And yeah, that feels like death, because part of you is dying. The part that performs, the part that pretends, the part that says whatever keeps things smooth. That part is being dissolved. What's left is simpler, more direct, more real. And reality loves what's real. Here's what starts happening when you stop lying, even about small things. First, your energy comes back. Not gradually, suddenly. Like someone unplugged the leak. You realize you've been exhausted for years, not because your life was hard, but because maintaining your lies was hard. And the moment you stop maintaining them, you have this surplus of energy you forgot existed. Second, your decisions become obvious. When you're lying to yourself about what you want, every decision is torture. Should I stay or go? Should I say yes or no? Should I do this or that? But when you're honest about what you actually want, decisions make themselves. Your body tells you immediately. Yes feels like expansion. No feels like contraction. There's no confusion anymore. Third, the right people start appearing. Not because you've changed your marketing or your social strategy or your personality. Because you've changed your frequency. When you're performing, you attract people who like the performance. When you're real, you attract people who like what's real. And the people who were only interested in your mask, they disappear. Not because they're bad people, because there's no resonance anymore. Fourth, life starts working with you instead of against you. Doors open that were previously locked. Opportunities appear that were previously invisible. Things flow that were previously stuck. Because here's the mechanism. Reality responds to coherence. When your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are all aligned, when you're telling the truth at every level, you become like a laser. Focused, powerful, clear. And reality responds to that clarity by reflecting it back to you. Things become clear. Paths become obvious. What needs to happen, happens. Not because you're manifesting, because you're no longer blocking. The lies were the blockage. The performance was the interference. The pretending was the static. Remove them, and suddenly the signal comes through clean. But here's the part that scares people. Living in truth means you can't control how others see you anymore. When you're performing, you have control. You can craft your image. You can manage perceptions. You can make sure everyone sees what you want them to see. When you're truthful, you lose that control. People will see you as you actually are. And some of them won't like it. Some of them will judge it. Some of them will reject it. And you can't do anything about that. This is the price of truth. You trade control for authenticity. You trade approval for alignment. You trade comfort for coherence. And at first, that trade feels terrible. But then something interesting happens. You realize that the people who reject the real you were never actually with you in the first place. They were with your mask. They were with your performance. They were with the version of you that said what they wanted to hear. And losing people who were never really there isn't actually a loss. What you gain is so much bigger. You gain people who see you, not the edited version, not the highlight reel, not the carefully curated presentation, the actual you, messy and contradictory and human and real. And they choose you anyway. That's when you understand what real connection actually is. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being impressive. It's not about saying the right things or doing the right things or being the right things. It's about being true and letting that truth find its matches in the world. Here's what nobody tells you about living without lies. It gets easier. Not because telling the truth becomes more comfortable, because you become more comfortable with discomfort. You learn that saying, "I don't know," is better than pretending. You learn that admitting confusion is better than faking certainty. You learn that showing fear is better than performing confidence. You learn that people connect with your humanity, not your perfection. And once you learn that, the whole game changes. You stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be accurate. You stop trying to control reactions and start trying to communicate clearly. You stop trying to maintain an image and start trying to maintain alignment. And life becomes so much simpler. Because here's the truth. Lies are complicated. Truth is simple. Lies require memory, strategy, performance, energy. Truth just requires presence. When someone asks how you are, you check in with yourself and say what's actually there. When someone asks what you think, you pause and say what you actually think. When someone asks what you want, you feel into your body and say what you actually want. No calculation, no performance, no strategy, just truth. And at first, this feels vulnerable and exposed and dangerous. But then you realize this is what freedom feels like. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom to be whoever you are, without editing, without filtering, without performing, just you, as you actually exist, in this moment. That's the life waiting on the other side of your lies. Not a perfect life, not an impressive life, not a life that looks good to everyone else. A real life. Your life. The one you're actually living underneath all the stories. And the moment you stop lying, even about small things, that life starts becoming visible. To others, yes. But more importantly, to you. You start seeing yourself clearly. What you actually want. What you actually feel. Who you actually are. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The lies become impossible. Not because you're trying to be good, because you finally know what truth feels like in your body. and nothing else feels right anymore. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments, "I choose truth." Write it as your promise to yourself. Nobody,